Rome did not build an empire on courage alone. Let's be honest, it built it on debt. We like to picture Roman legions as disciplined, honorable, unstoppable soldiers, but the reality behind the scenes was far less romantic. Behind those polished helmets and sharp swords was a massive organization, and that organization had one essential need: money. Thousands of soldiers had to be fed, wages had to be paid, weapons had to be produced, roads had to be built, horses had to be fed, timber had to be cut, and workers hired to build siege machines. So this was never just about fighting, it was about keeping a war machine alive. So how did Rome manage to do this? And more importantly, what does it have to do with us today? Let me explain. The deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. In Rome, war was not only fought on the battlefield, it was embedded directly into the economy. And once that system was in place, stopping it became almost impossible. Expansion was no longer a choice, it was a matter of survival. Sound familiar? Let's go back to the beginning. In the early years of the Republic, Rome's army was made up of ordinary citizens. If you owned land and were called, you went. You brought your own weapons, and when the war ended, you returned home to your farm. It was a simple system. But as Rome grew, things became complicated. Wars lasted longer. Front lines moved farther away. The idea of leaving for one season and coming back disappeared. Soldiers were gone for years. The old system collapsed. That is when Rome realized something important. This could not work without professional soldiers. The state began paying wages to its soldiers. They were not high, but they mattered. Loyalty was being bought. Then something even more critical happened. Conquest stopped being just about power and became a source of income. New land meant more taxes, more slaves, more mines, more tribute. War was now paying for future wars. A self-sustaining cycle was created. But this is where a dangerous door opened. Rome did not finance these wars only through taxes. It borrowed money, a lot of it. During long and expensive conflicts like the Punic Wars against Carthage, the state borrowed heavily from the wealthy. These loans were not given out of patriotism. They were investments. What did the lenders expect? Interest, tax collection privileges, business rights in newly conquered territories. War became a profitable business in the most literal sense. And whenever something is profitable, it gets repeated. A familiar instinct, right? Over time, this system reshaped everything. Power shifted to generals who could promise loot. Senators turned into investors who profited from war. Private companies known as publicani handled logistics, tax collection, and supply chains. Everyone was making money somewhere. In modern terms, it was a military-industrial system wearing a toga. But there was a cost. State expenses kept rising. Soldiers, debts, interest payments. Everything demanded money. When conquest slowed or rebellions broke out, the treasury began to run dry, and the state turned to the oldest solution in history. It hollowed out the currency. Under Emperor Nero, the silver content of the denarius was gradually reduced, no public announcement, no warnings. But over time, the same coin bought less and less. Later emperors followed the same path. The result? Inflation, loss of trust, and eventually a collapsing monetary system. So, who suffered the most? Take a guess. The rich? No. The wealthy protected their assets in land, slaves, and property. They secured tax exemptions. They understood the system. The poor, meanwhile, kept paying taxes with devalued money. Public services declined. Corruption spread. The burden always moved downward. This was not just a military collapse. It was a monetary one. Now pause and